And tonight on PM Express, a continuation of the conversation about ending road crashes that keep recurring. Of course, if you watch that documentary that just aired, many people keep dying on our roads. More worrying is the fact that many children are losing their lives through road crashes. How do we end this recurring incident? What differently must we do as a country? Sedkwan Boateng has given you all the statistics, all the figures, but I'm not going to repeat what he said. I'm just trying to refresh our minds, because if I show you the statistics, it will wow you. Let's look at it, and it starts here. The number of persons killed less than 18 years. January to May 2021, 168. January to July 2021, 238. In 1 month, 70 deaths. 1 month, 4 weeks, 70 deaths all the time. You want to do the calculation for the 12 months in the year, and then you realize that we are losing a lot of people through road accidents. The number of cases reported, 9,520 cases. That's from January to July alone, 2021. Now, number of persons killed, 1,706 persons. Number of persons injured, 9,299 persons. That's not a number that we should be joking with. Let's look at the total number of vehicles involved, 16,226 vehicles. This is where you ask the question, what is the MTTD doing differently? We've had this conversation again. Why are we discussing this? Because this time there are some vulnerable group of people among the population that is involved in this one. If you have a kid who has his leg or her leg amputated and has to live with this ordeal for the rest of their lives, you will understand why you and I have a collective responsibility to end road carnages. And that's the discussion we're going to be having this evening, because we have all the people who matter in ending this on our roads. Now, the number of vehicles involved from January to July 2021, the vehicle type we're talking about, the private vehicles, 6,829. Commercial vehicles, 5,726. Motorcycles, 3,671. This is quite alarming. And we are comparing the 2020 to 2021 figures between January and July. So this is 2020, this is 2021, between the same period. And you realize that in 2020, we had 1,371. And that gives you what? That was in 2020. Now in 2021, around the same period, 1,706. And in 2020, we had a lot of discussions. We talked about why we should end this carnage on our roads. But in 2021, you can see that the figure has actually gone up and it's not going down. That makes it 24.43% if you do the calculation. And you're comparing 2020 and 2021 from January to July again, the number of persons injured, and you're talking about 8,199 in 2020, and in 2021, 9,299, making it 13.42%. And if you look at these figures, it's by no means the gap is not bridging, it's actually widening. And so this is why you and I should be worried. Now, let's compare the number of vehicles involved from January to July 2021. And for the same period, in 2020, we had 13,418. In 2021, 16,226, making it 20.93%. Still, the gap has widened. It hasn't closed. So that's why we are asking why children should bear the brunt of our negligence. How do we protect these young ones? Thankfully, I have all the people who matter in reversing the trend, and I'll be introducing them to you shortly after this break. Welcome back to PM Express, and we're discussing, having a continuation of that conversation about road crashes, especially with children who have to lose a leg or two and curtail their dreams for the future through road accidents. Now, David Osafo Adonting, who is Director of Planning and Programs at the Ghana Road Safety Commission, joins us for the discussion. CECIL GARBRAH, he's a transport consultant. Our own NORTEY DUA, who is a clinical psychologist, is also joining the conversation, and Superintendent Alexander Obing, who is Director Education, Research and Training at the Motor Traffic and Transport Department, also joins us with the Ghana Police. You can also join the conversation and also tweet at us with the hashtag PM Express. My personal handle is at the Nana Aisha. If time permits, we would also open the phone line so that we can have you talk to us what your experiences are and how you think we can cross this hurdle. Let me start with your initial reactions after watching this heartbreaking scenes on our documentary. I'll start with you, CECIL GARBRAH.
Well, thank you, and good evening to everybody watching and listening to us. Sadly, I haven't seen the documentary. I spoke to the producer, and I know what it means. The situation will be as normal as we see it. Normal because many road crashes are still occurring, and the situation remains the same where deaths are the increase, where people are suffering. Little children are suffering than all other people because if you go back to check on the medical doctors, they will tell you that, look, younger people who are less than 13 years of age will find that difficulties in crossing the road. You can put an elderly person there who is more than 21 years of age and someone around 13. It will be so difficult for that child to cross the road. But however, do drivers know all this? No, they don't care, especially many of the drivers who are both commercial and other private drivers will not look at people who are crossing. Our laws are there that when you see anybody trying to step to cross the pedestrian crossing, you have to slow down and stop. But not in Ghana, not in Africa, that will not work because many drivers are recalcitrant. I mean, they don't really care about whatever happens on the road, whatever it is. They are always in a hurry. But then, if you look at what has really happened, I saw excerpts of the last one. I haven't really watched this, but I know for sure that the blame game will be on drivers. But we should look at pedestrians as well, because if you have a child who is less than 10 years of age, and then you've asked that child to go to school, then you, the mother, you, the father, you, the parent, I will term you as a wicked person because that child cannot cross the highway. Okay, so it starts from that point that I am talking about. That courtesy must begin from your own home. You have a child. You've asked that child, giving that child maybe 2 cities, 3 cities. Go school, Nabra. Go to school and come. But the welfare of the child is.
All right, so we lost CECIL GARBRAH there, but he's made his point about how he feels about this documentary. We'll try and bring him back. NORTEY DUA, certainly, we've been talking about the impact this has on the children. Even before we go into those details, I just want to pick your thoughts, your initial reactions after watching this documentary.
Right. Aisha, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, NORTEY.
Okay. I haven't watched the documentary, but I know the details. And these are horrifying details. And it's a phenomenon and a reality that we have to deal with as a nation, particularly, and I guess especially when we start looking at the impact on children. I've seen and read some of the statistics, and the increasing statistics for children tell us that there must be clear, sustainable interventions that we are undertaking to protect children and make sure that we provide them with the security and safety they require as minors. So I'm horrified by the details, but we need to start looking at specific sustainable interventions. When we were growing up as kids, we had the Green Cross code: look left, look right, do this before you cross the road, and so on and so forth. Now, more cars, more congestion, and so on and so forth, and perhaps less resources going to these interventions. So we need to start looking at these things, and also start looking at the kind of interventions and therapy we give the unfortunate victims of this unfortunate human phenomenon.
All right, so that's NORTEY DUA. We'll be getting much into the psychological impact on our kids. Let me bring in Superintendent Alex Obeng. You've been enforcing the rules on our roads. How do you feel that the figures keep going up after watching this documentary?
All right, thank you for the opportunity, and good evening to colleagues. It's been a long time, Mr. CECIL. I think, first of all of us must commend SET, because road safety for some time now, and the UN has also been talking about it, that it's been at the back burner when it comes to public discourse and interest. However, in recent times, we've seen the youth, and Pame is within that bracket, courting the public into realizing that road safety has a big problem. This is perplexing and has inadequate solution, and it's occurring on a daily basis, and it's closer to all of us, and it's impacting on all of us. Therefore, all hands should be on deck. And I'm not surprised that around this hour, all of us are around this PM Express desk to find additional safety toolbox in order to change attitude and enhance and maximize safety consciousness of all Ghanaians, particularly those who own vehicles, parents, and drivers, among others. For us, we understand the road conditions in Ghana, and we know that in finding solution to these myriad of challenges that have bedeviled the road safety management, there is always a need to ensure that traffic police stays focused. It's in this light that if you look at what we have done as a cell yesterday between January and July, and compared with the same period last year, we realize that the data we have in terms of those who have been able to arrest on our roads across the country and compare with the same period last year, we observe that
Okay, so there's a
there has been significant
let's try and fix the Superintendent's internet well and bring him back. Let me come back to you, NORTEY. This certainly has a psychological impact on our kids, and that is if they are able to survive the outcome of the accident. But then again, if you find yourself in the shoes of someone like Moses and the others who have their legs amputated, then you have to live with this your whole life. How dire is the psychological impact, NORTEY? Okay, if Seth Kwam Boateng is there, Seth Kwam Boateng, as we wait for NORTEY to come on, Seth Kwam Boateng, I mean, kudos for a good job done. All the panelists are praising you for a good job. Tell me, what has been the reaction after the premiering?
I got back to my hotel not long ago, and before I left, I met quite a number of people in groups talking about it, expressing how disappointed they are about the needless death of children we call our future leaders, and how they think that we have, as a state, failed failed our children, because we can't look on for whole school. For example, from class 1 to class 6, if 50 pupils are in each class, to die in a year. That is how it looks like. And so people are talking about it, and I'm hoping that how they feel now will reflect in how they use the road, how they drive, and how the attention that they're going to pay to their children. I heard Mr. CECIL GARBRAH speak about how we allow children at 6, 7, 8 go to school alone. And in the case of Peter, for example, he was 6 years. He went to school. His teacher sent him to go and collect studies and printing fees. He was only 6 years, and while crossing the road, he was knocked down, and God saved his life, but he couldn't save his 2 legs. And that is an issue, because today, to do the calculation, I have to cross or not. So it's a big issue, and people are talking about it. And I'm praying that how they feel now, how they are passionate about it now, how they are concerned about it now, reflect in how they drive, how they cater for their young ones going forward.
All right, and I pray so too, that the momentum will still be like this. It will not fade out. So I'm told Superintendent is back on. Superintendent, you were telling me about the effort you've been making to enforce our regulations on our roads.
Yes, and continuing, I said that between January and July this year, indicators are clear that there has been a consistent increase in our efforts in deterrence by way of looking out, detecting and arresting those offenders or offensive behavior which otherwise would have led to even more crashes, i.e. excessive speeding behaviors, overloading, drunk driving, people who are using substandard tires on their vehicles, people who are incompetent, untrained, and unlicensed persons, people who are using rickety and unsafe vehicles, those who were riding motorcycles without wearing protective clothing, and many who were not on seatbelts, and those who had left their vehicles in dangerous positions serving as traps. Those who were involved in other myriad of road offensive behavior that in the process led to us arresting over 2,743 for courts, and so far 2,317 convicted. And if you compare 2,317 convicted with the same period last year, you observe that there has been almost 80% increase over the same period last year. Last year, by now, 1,570 have been convicted, and out of this, 11 are successful in jail, and over 1,200,000 Ghana cedis have been imposed as court fines, hoping that this will change. But this is even far below what we could have done, knowing very well that our effort is basically physical. It's now that we are putting in measures to deploy ICT to support us, so that there will be virtual capacity detect, arrest, and impose fines, and in order to increase deterrence. So we know that we need to do more, and that's why many countries now are not only looking at traffic policing in terms of deployment, they are also looking at putting in other self-enforcing measures, i.e., for example, what happened 3 days ago or 48 hours ago at Jaso Township on the N6 between Koko and Kolongo, where the saloon vehicle was trying to do column overtaking by attempting to overtake heavily loaded prime mover and a mini bus, and in the process was frontally hit right of way Accra bound high occupancy bus, leading to Ghana losing some lives and people getting injured.
So
And
this
these are
goes to show, actually, Superintendent, that there's a lot of negligence on our ways. So we'll be talking about the challenge of enforcing the regulations, because if people do not regard the regulations, they must face the law. And I'm happy you talk about some amount you've been able to get from the roads, but you say you could do more. But Norte, let me bring you in quickly here, because we're talking about the psychological impact on our kids. And of course, if you're able to survive, that's even when we can talk about this psychological impact, because a number of them also die.
Thank you, Aisha, and I hope you can hear me. Try to activate my camera now. Manage to drive home and get home. But yeah, I mean, any loss has an impact. Now, you're talking about a traumatic loss. You're talking about an immediate threat to life, your sense of security, and so on and so forth. So this is a huge impact on anybody, let alone a child who is clearly dependent on other people and adults for their safety. So when you lose something, it has a huge psychological impact, and alongside the physical impact. So you can imagine a child who depends on us for their safety, and suddenly they are thrown into this whole chaos. May or may not lose consciousness. You wake up and all sorts of things are going on around you. And the outcome, you know, is something very, very dramatic and traumatic to you as a child. I'm sure, Aisha, as an adult, if you were to lose even a finger, you can imagine the impact. So for a child, not being able to walk, not being able to speak, not being around loved ones who care for you, not being sure of your sense of security, and so on and so forth, thrusts you into a very, very insecure psychological state. Whilst this may be managed during the acute phase or the immediate phase, whilst you're being looked after and treated in hospital, the aftermath is the whole kaleidoscope, where you have flashbacks of the event, you have difficulty being calm, settled, and resuming normal functioning. So these are all areas of rehabilitation alongside the physical rehabilitation that has to be undertaken for this child. An adult can understand medical procedures and understand some of the prognosis or the issues. A child has significant difficulty coming to terms with all of these things. So these are the range of things that a child will go through. And of course, once they are not able to continue life as normal, school as normal, and so on and so forth, these also have impact. Even adults who are disabled, whether from birth or in later life, have these challenges. So you can imagine the plethora of things that the children would be undergoing as a result of these tragic road traffic accidents and the impact on them.
And this reminds me of what Peter said. Peter said that he with his friends football together, but now when they are playing football, he is stuck in wheelchair, and that is his pain. The fact that he cannot play with his friends again, and he has to be in a wheelchair and always watch them, that is his pain. And when will I ever join my friends and play again? So somebody like him, Peter, will need psychological assistance for him, because he's struggling with that, because he sees them play every day. And to worsen his case, somebody who was going to school, he has now been put in a special school. The family has put him in a special, no longer
it's not in the mainstream school.
In the mainstream.
That's right.
So they are treated a child with a special need.
I'm glad you brought this up. So these are some of the things we have to contend with. Let's be clear in our minds that even in this instance or this scenario you recount, this child's needs have been identified, and thankfully there is some specialized placement for this child. There has to be some work to get the child, to integrate this reality. But you can imagine a space where we lack this kind of assessment and the ability to place this child in the right place. Even using some of these aids, wheelchairs and so on and so forth. Go to physiotherapy, go to any place. You see that we have to train people and get them accustomed to using these things and integrating them into their lives. So you can imagine doing this for a child. So yes, you're quite right. And it's important. We very much need to focus on the physical well-being of the child, broken bones and limbs and all that. But the psychological impact and the necessary or requisite rehabilitation must be taken into consideration and provided. And very often, and let me point this out also, where there are insurance policies and things, very often we forget and we overlook these needs. You may have a court or an insurance company that may not properly may not have the proper capacity to compute these damages and the related compensation required. So it's important that we are talking about these things that are needed, not just children, even though the focus here is on children, but for adults as well who are victims of these activities.
This is quite pathetic, and CECIL GARBRAH, this is why I bring you in, because we've been talking about this road crashes over a period over the period. Never have we put the spotlight on what this does to children who go through this ordeal. Let me ask you, what would it take to end this?
Thank you very much. In this case, in actual fact, I am really sad with the excerpts that I'm watching from the internet. However, the way forward is very important, right? Children are vulnerable, and they need lots of assistance from we adults to manage and then consider the risks associated with using of the road, right? So we as parents, whether you are a mother or a father, parents in general need to start, helping every child, because sometimes you could see a child wants to cross the road and it is really difficult for this child. So I'm looking at the way forward that we all need to get ourselves involved in education. Children need particular help in detecting the presence of traffic and judging the speed of the distance of oncoming traffic. This is the difficult part. And when I started, I was really interested in parental care, which must be the issue. As for drivers, the least we talk about them, that will resolve our issues, because most drivers, like I said, are not drivers. I always tell my class when I'm lecturing people that, look here, when you're driving and you look around and see 10 vehicles, 5 of them are, excuse me to say, mad, right? So you drive well and don't look at those people. But what do we do as parents? As children grow and develop, we should also know that they need help from us. Children become increasingly aware of how they can manage their own safety after they've gotten to another age, right? So at that tender age, which I say from 5 to 11, we shouldn't allow our child to go and cross the road, right? Let's hold their hands. Let's take them to the roadside, even if we are less busy, for them to look at vehicles passing, for them to know what the pedestrian crossing is. I hear a lot of issues like people terming them as zebra crossing. Zebra crossing is part of a pedestrian crossing, right? Let them understand what it means, where you have to cross, how they have to manage the pelican crossing or the token crossing, what it means. We need education for these children, right? As part of our 25th anniversary, for instance, from next month, we are starting with a lot of education with children, and we want to cover at least about 20 to 30% of cluster of schools in educating them on some of these issues on crossing the road. So we all have to get ourselves involved, and that is why I like multimedia a lot for talking every day about road safety so that we reduce the carnage on our road, okay? We need to get everybody involved. We need to talk about it every day. And it is education, just like my brother Alex will say, and we will also say that we have the technical E in road safety, and then education is really important. Enforcement is also really important. All the E's are important, but then we need to educate ourselves, starting from you as an individual. We need to go to everywhere that we could think of, the market. And so road safety is not a one-man business. The police cannot do it. The stakeholders cannot do it. We all must be involved in these educational practices. So we teach the child all the steps in driving. I mean, we were doing it when we were children. We go by the roadside and then we sing all those beautiful songs. We need to bring those songs back. We need to know that you are crossing the road, look left, look right, look left again. And then we will also hit hard at drivers. And then I know my brother Alex will be listening to me. I'm always talking about enforcement. Those drivers must go through those punishments. I mean, that there should be very serious punitive measures on drivers who refuse to slow down for children to cross on the pedestrian crossing. So if we are able to cover training of the child, training of the parents, I do believe that the crashes that we see now will be reduced, and will be. We'll have a very good case where we'll not blame the child, will not blame the parents, but rather most probably blame the driver for being recalcitrant.
A good point, well made there. Let me come to you, Superintendent, it's being enforcement. What differently do you seek to do to achieve our Operation Zero crashes on our roads?
All right, I think my colleague CECIL mentioned punitive sanctions, and that's why I said that with what we did using January to July as an example, said that all that we could do was to process and put the 2,743 persons who committed various traffic offenses at the various motor courts. And the court has so far adjudicated over 2,317 cases and convicted same. And those persons, 11 have been sentenced to prison, and the rest, they are sentenced and imposed with varying amounts of court fines to pay. And I gave the total to be 1,227,245 Ghana cedis into the state government. And these constituted the punitive punishment, perhaps CECIL was talking about. But beyond that, I think that the physical police deployment will have to be sustained and then reinforce it with modern ICT-based systems so that even when police presence, physical presence is not there, virtually any road user will be monitored and for the person to be forthcoming.
What has happened to the cameras that are supposed to be at vantage points? So we have it on all our highways.
It's in a pipeline, and soon we will see the light of day. But like I said, in terms of enforcement, countries currently do not rely solely on police deployment strategy. They go beyond it, and that's why I was using an example of what happened in Gaso. You see, currently the roads are busy from Accra to Kumasi, on that highway, and you are on it, and you think you are driving on the streets of Accra. There's congestion all over. Therefore, if you continue to allow it and encourage, we sign our death warrants, and that's why it is profusely advocated that the N6 should be dualized and the N1s. And I think that it is because when it is done, it will allow for a greater self-enforcement. I believe that is why, among other self-enforcement, others are also advocating for quick removal of certain obstructions that normally traps us and ends up increasing the numbers. And it's the same reason why I think all of us are also advocating that we should not sit aloof, but pay attention to motorcycle-related offenses and behavior, because the period under which we are discussing this, of the 1,706 deaths, fewer motorcycles out of the 9,520 vehicles that got involved in these crashes. Only 3,670 were being motorcycles of very models, killed 735. And this has never happened in our contemporary road safety management outcomes. And I think that in discussing enforcement, we should take a look at it, because the more we look elsewhere, the more these few ones are putting our plans and our data out of gear. And therefore, taking a second look at motorcycle policy, injecting new strategies and regulations, and then putting in other systems of enforcement to augment the existing method that traffic police and others are using, the better. Because how can, out of 1,706 deaths, fewer motorcycles will contribute almost 40%.
Certainly, this is something that should get us worried, and I'm happy that you are here with us and all the other people who matter. Unfortunately, David Adonsing hasn't been able to join, but let me take a break on PM Express. When I return, we'll be finding out. We keep talking about enforcement, but also we say it's a collective responsibility. What is the role of each and every one of us in ensuring that we have Operation Zero crashes on our roads? Stay with me, I'm coming right back. Welcome back to PM Express. We're continuing the conversation from our documentary Crushed Young, and we're looking at the issues with children who are involved in accidents on our roads and the ordeal they have to live with after. Now, let me come back to you, NORTEY DUA. We agree that it's a collective responsibility. Superintendent has spoken about what differently going forward they will be doing. What other roles do we have as parents, as sisters, brothers, each other's keepers to ensure that we achieve this?
Well, thanks, Aisha, and I'm glad Superintendent talked about things they're doing. But I'm surprised. I do believe, and you can ask him for clarity on this, we have the breathalyzers, don't we? I'm particularly concerned about drink driving and how we enforce that. Our legal limiting. Yeah, whether they're highway issues or urban issues, right? Laws with regard to the level of alcohol you can take and drive, and we have other things we need to be enforcing. So I think it's important, whilst they look at fines and other things and cameras, we should also be looking at the breathalyzer and seeing how many of our drivers are unfit to drive and handle a vehicle. That's one thing. We also have a responsibility to teach children. It should be part and parcel of the school curriculum. Look left, look right, look left again, do this, do that before you cross roads, don't cross in between parked vehicles, etc. These were things we could rattle as kids, and we've let that go for all sorts of soap operas and other things where we have a lot of space to be doing a lot of meaningful education and empowerment in a preventive mode to try and drive these numbers down, right? So I see all sorts of children with all sorts of backpacks going to and from school on their own. This is the height of irresponsibility as far as I'm concerned. You know, I see
on the part of parents?
Of parents and community. You know, that children are, I mean, as young as 3, 4 are walking back home. I remember I've done an interview like this about 10 years ago where I remember picking a young girl around Elwak, right? Because she was standing by the roadside. And I picked her because I wanted to know where she was going. Mm. And she was going all the way to somewhere, Shiashi.
Okay.
Now, Aisha, I picked this young girl, and by the time I had changed gear, those days I had a manual vehicle, changed gear once or twice, she was asleep.
Wow.
So you can imagine, if I had bad intentions, and this is somebody who has a parent somewhere, and they've gone to school, how she manages to cross the road, how she goes and comes, and there are schools that are allowing children to leave school on their own, unattended, unsupervised, right? If you cannot pick your child, then you should not have that child in my school. I think we should start looking at some of these things, right? Downstream, yes, when it has happened, there's a lot of psychological support that we can provide to families and the children directly, okay? And let's not forget, it's not just the children who are involved in the accidents. Their siblings also suffer collateral trauma. Seeing your sibling with an amputated arm or leg, or unable to join you in other things, is traumatizing. So we should be doing a lot more on the preventive side, and the multi-sectorial and multidisciplinary collaboration must be enhanced. Police have a role, yes, they have enforcement roles, and sometimes I must say, please, they are also involved in some of the reckless driving as well. Mm. So let's have a concerted effort. Let's not have documentaries that just keep telling us we're going backwards and backwards and backwards. And let's be mindful also of the new trends. I'm glad Superintendent mentioned the motorbikes and motorcycles. These are boboya and everything, which has become a means of transport. I've seen people going to church in these contraptions. I'd like to call them that. They don't have rear view mirrors. And even the motorcycles we see, check, you'll find that all these motorcycle riders, they take off the mirrors, right? And you see them turning backwards to look whilst doing all these crazy maneuvers. I think we should enforce some of these things and make sure that if you have a motorcycle or a tractor, a tricycle, and it doesn't have all these safety features, you should be fined and it should be taken off the road. Mm. But I see them passing police checkpoints and all these things quite freely. If you put a load on a tricycle, your rear view and your view generally is blocked. Mm. So there's a whole range of enforcement and behavioral change that we should be also looking at. The last thing I want to say, Aisha, too much commerce or commercial activity is on the shoulders of our roads. There's a child going to buy wache. Do you see? So all these things that we are allowed to go on the sides of the road also, should I say, compromise visibility, attention, and so many things. A child is running across the road to buy something, bread. They've been sent on an errand. Do you see? So should we have every manner of commercial activity on every roadside and street corner? This is the kind of discipline and, should I say, road hygiene we need. And so somebody is selling wache or kelewele under a traffic light. You see?
Unfortunately, time will not allow us to ask Superintendent Obeng on what has been the challenge in dealing with some of the issues that NORTED DUA has mentioned. But I want to believe that he's taking notes and will deal with some of these issues on our road. Thank you so much for joining us for the discussion. NORTED DUA is a clinical psychologist. I'm grateful for your time, Superintendent Alexander Obeng. He is he's in charge of training at the MTTD, and we also had CECIL GARBRAH, who is a transport consultant. Kwame Boateng himself joined us. He put together that documentary. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time this evening. Viewers, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.